At what point do we start the makeup tutorial? Look, I had nothing to do today or yesterday.
Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be doing something a little different, and I have my brother and new sister-in-law here, and we're kind of just going to be talking about life, their faith journeys, and a little bit of relationship advice. So, yes, you guys can introduce yourselves, who you are.
I'm Colin, I'm Erin's brother.
I'm Lauren, I'm his wife.
Yes. So, just kind of walk me through your faith journey, like starting, I guess, from baptism and then kind of through high school.
Okay, so I was baptized when I was about 8 years old. I remember coming to my mom in the basement of our house in Illinois, and I just felt a calling to be baptized. And then when you grow up, different life experiences happen. You just have different perspective on the world almost each year. And so some life events that happened in middle school and high school, I kind of was distant from the church, and I never stopped believing in God, but the activeness in my faith it fell off. When I went to college, I really wasn't looking to deepen my faith or to become more involved with FCA and stuff like that. I really was just looking to benefit me, and through a course of events, a lot of them leading to football, my faith did deepen a lot. I got more involved in FCA, and I never got re-baptized, but I kind of reset my faith and really changed the trajectory of my life probably around when I was 19, and that put me on the course that I'm on today.
Talking about football, what specifically happened at 19 that sort of deepened your faith?
So I told everybody that I was going to go to U of L and be a baseball manager my freshman year, and somehow I knew this before I actually knew this, but I told people I'm going to hit a growth spurt and then I'm going to try out for the baseball team. And I was honestly very confident in that plan, even though I had zero control over that growth spurt. And then I got there and realized that I don't throw anywhere near as hard as the guys on that baseball team, and there was kind of a reason that the door for baseball had been closed in my life. And I just felt this calling to play football again. I quit football after my junior year of high school. I had no interest in playing it ever again, honestly. And I had the right people introduced to me. I met one of the quarterbacks on the football team at orientation freshman year. I had classes with some other guys that just put me in a position to where I would play football, and it really wasn't until about November of my freshman year that I thought, I'm going to do this. And then there were some other events that led up to it that really were only God. And so I even got cut the first time I tried out, and a lot of people thought that was going to be it for me. And I just had this calling on my heart that I couldn't explain. I'd never felt that sort of motivation before, that was what I was supposed to do. So the day after I got cut, I went back and woke up at 6 a.m. and started working out again. And I told the guys on the baseball team, asked how it went, and I told them, and they were shocked that I was still working out and stuff like that. But it was the first time that I've really felt like I've heard God's voice. And in the position I'm in right now, I don't really know exactly why football was the route that I was supposed to take, but I'm very blessed and I'm very happy with the life that it's allowed me to have.
Yeah, because for those of you who don't know, Colin did not even play football his senior year of high school, and then with everything that happened, Colin was the 5th long snapper to ever be drafted in the NFL draft. And if you would have told any of us that was going to happen, I think we all would have said, no way, just because that just totally was not the path we expected him to go on. And it's kind of the same for me with like nursing school, because I always knew that I wanted to be a nurse, and then I went to school, didn't get in my freshman year, and then I had to go back the next year, and I had to get an A in this chemistry class or I wouldn't get into the program, and like the odds were stacked against me because I am horrible at chemistry. And so it was really only through God, which I think is kind of the common theme in both of our lives, with where like God had to get us to a point where it could only be Him, and so He was glorified through that. Okay, talk about your all's relationship and how did you guys meet?
So camp had just ended, and I was really in like no position to be meeting someone or to be dating anyone really, because I knew that there was a chance that I could play in the NFL. I didn't think it was a strong one, but I was willing to give it a shot, and knowing that was down the pipe, I didn't want to put someone through whatever that would bring. I didn't know exactly what that would bring, but I didn't want to bring someone into that. God obviously had other plans. I went out to O'Shea's the week after I got done with camp before school started. I was just going out to hang out with my buddies, and Lauren and I had to have been in the same room. We were on the same field for 3 years. We had to have crossed paths at least 10 times, but it wasn't until that night, August 26th, that I saw her for the first time. I had to have seen her, but that was the first time I saw her. And she was so different than any other girl I'd ever met. And I wasn't looking to meet anybody, and she was kind of fresh out of a longer relationship, and she wasn't really looking to meet or to fall in love with anybody. And so God has a sense of humor, and neither one of us were looking for love or for a relationship, and he had something totally different.
One day we were talking and he actually told me, like, for a long time I was just thinking, like, why won't God let me meet somebody? Because I, like, try and I put myself out there and I'm nice, and he's like, I see all these guys that I'm friends with or that I'm on a team with that don't treat their girls right or not leading, like, a godly path. And I'm ready to do that, and for some reason God hasn't given me that opportunity. And he was like, one day I was just like reading some scripture and I realized that maybe it's not me, but maybe who I'm supposed to be with isn't ready for me yet.
Yeah.
We definitely had some tests, especially when she was in the full swing of Daytona season, and I was in the full swing of, Senior Bowl, Combine, all the stuff that went into the pre-draft, and just that started to really pick up, and became a lot more serious that I was going to play in the NFL. And she had school, and she had Daytona, and she had a lot of stuff in her life, and I had a lot of stuff in my life, and there were definitely moments and instances of physical distance that our relationship was really tested, and I think that just went to show how much God played a role in our relationship, all the way up until today and forever. How much that he was in control and that he was putting us together for a reason.
Yeah, and I have to say, Colin is very picky when it comes to girls. Like, he never brought anyone home. I mean, I can't remember really hearing about any other girls until Lauren. And so we knew she had to be special because Colin's picky. And, like, I have the best brothers in the world, and they truly are the filter that I run any guy through, because they've just set a really high standard for me, and I'm very thankful for that.
I actually told you that. I told him that early on in our relationship. When, like, I've been over and met all of you. I was like, I think Erin's going to have a hard time finding someone. Like, not because she doesn't deserve it or there's not, like, people out there. I'm like, but she's got you and Brendan as examples, and she knows what's supposed to be right. And I was like, and most people don't treat girls the way that you all do. Yeah. And so it's just really hard because she's seen that.
And so what would you say, okay, your spin on meeting Colin and first impressions?
Or like Colin said, we met at a bar. So not really a place we go to find love. Wasn't really looking for someone to date. I was just hanging out with my girlfriends. We got introduced through mutual friends, and we had a good time talking. Like, I had a good conversation with him. So we met, and one of his friends from Louisville, Tim, walks up and kind of asks him how football's going in the middle of our conversation. I was like, great, of course, out of everyone here, I ran into a football player, and I had no idea. I mean, I've heard horror stories from my friends. And
Not about me.
Not about him, but from other guys, like some of his teammates or other guys that were D1 athletes. Like, I've heard these stories. Oh my gosh. I've heard these stories of just, like, how they didn't treat girls right, and, they, like, would really fall in love with somebody, and then they kind of just... the relationship never ended up working out. So I really wasn't too keen on talking to a football player, but we talked every day after we met, and it was like conversation just flew so naturally, and I just realized, like, after no time we were like best friends, and so it was a no-brainer, really.
I felt like we became best friends on our first date, and I felt like I was dating my best friend from there, and I never had that God had kept us apart and kept us strangers for that right moment, when both of our hearts and our minds were ready to to find each other.
Yeah. And then talk about like incorporating faith into your all's relationship and what that has like looked like.
I think without the amount of faith and the priority that we made it, I don't think we'd be married right now.
No.
From the start, we were going to church together. We were praying at meals, even restaurants together. Before we were married, we had devotionals together. And so faith was something that really brought us closer. I think it was something that when we were both unsure of what the future had for us, if what we were doing was the right thing to do, if we were moving too fast or if we were moving too slow, the decisions that we were making, I think everything was centered around the fact that both of us had a common religion, that we both were on the same level, that she was willing to allow me to trust God with my life, and she was willing to trust God with her life, and that the stuff that was out of our control that I think is stumbling blocks for a lot of couples, it obviously tripped us up a little bit too, but we had our faith to lean on. And so I could remember moments of, me thinking I'm in Pittsburgh or I'm in Jacksonville, I'm like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Or even when I was here in between Pittsburgh and Jacksonville, I was, what am I doing? What am I putting Lauren through? What am I putting myself through? How long is this going to last? A lot of stuff like that. And I think faith really was something for us to lean on, and just give us confidence that, when we would be quiet, when we would listen to God, when we would pray and, read, that was something that really brought us together. I think the biggest thing, my favorite thing is Monday mornings we do verse of the week. And a lot of times I think that's God's way of talking to me for our relationship. I send her the verse, but the verse is generally it's something that relates to that week. And so it's something that I'll go back every once in a while and I'll look at a verse at a certain week, and it reminds me of what we were going through at that point. And if we're feeling that same pressure again, right now I'm not with a team feeling, sort of the same pressure as I felt in October last year. What am I doing here? Is it time to go move on to the next thing? Just wait it out, and so I think faith for my career and for her career, as well as, our relationship overall, has really been the anchor and the common ground that has helped us get us through a lot of difficult times.
I'd say the verse of the week really helped with distance too. When we were apart, like that was some way that you could, like, it confirmed to me every Monday when we start the week, it confirmed to me that you were aware of like what I was struggling with, what I was going through, because you always picked out a verse that kind of related to whatever was going on in our lives. And then, so obviously like the verses, the devotionals, praying together, like we do all that stuff, but I'd say the number one thing that is really good that with our relationship is that you're always there, like whenever one of us, because as Christians you like to always say we put God first, God's our number one, and you do, but a lot of times like the stresses of the day-to-day, you forget, you get stressed out, and you don't take that moment to sit back and say, okay, I need to relax, like God's got this. And we can do that for each other. So like when I'm in a panic about something, he's there to remind me, like, don't worry, God's here, and he's reminding me that you're not putting God first right now. Readjust, rethink, that's where you need to be. And like I can do that for him when we have other things. So I think that's like one of the best things, especially not being married, because you just don't, you don't have that, like I didn't have that person in my life to, like, when I was panicking, like I didn't have that person to always be there and be like, we're in this together with God. It's a it's a group of three. So
and like they have always prayed together at night. Like I remember the first time Colin was staying at my parents' house and I was at my parents' house, and I like heard him in the other room and I was like, oh. And then when we were in Nashville for Lauren's bachelorette party, we're in the Uber going somewhere and they still prayed, and I just thought it was the sweetest thing. But so now you're married. So what would you say has been the hardest and best part about being married? And they've only been married for
32 days.
A little over a month, yes.
The hardest part is who gets to control the thermostat. But I don't know.
I wouldn't say that's the hardest part
for me.
But maybe because she's the one sacrificing for me.
Okay.
I would say, and I've told my friends this, and I think Lauren, it goes for Lauren too, but you don't have your own room. I mean, like, even in college, you go over to each other's houses and you're hanging out, but at the end of the day, like, She has her own room and her closet and her dresser and her bathroom and her, all of her own stuff. And vice versa, same with me.
Yeah.
And so I think that is just a transition, because at no point in your life growing up, at least for either one of us, did we ever have to share everything.
Well, but it's not really about like the stuff sharing. It's more so like your own space. Like
right,
you don't have your own, like if we get in an argument, there's no me saying,
my
okay,
bedroom's
well, I'll
her
just
bedroom.
talk to you tomorrow, or like there's nowhere for me to go. That's my own space. It's all our space.
Yeah.
So that is something.
Yeah, and so even sharing a room with a brother growing up for a little bit, it's just different.
Yeah.
I would hope.
It's just different. But I would say, to flip that though, just being with her all the time is my favorite part, especially with the schedule that 2017 was for me. I mean, I was in Pittsburgh for an extended period of time. I was in Florida for an extended period of time. And then when I was in Louisville, I was living at my parents' and she was living at her parents'. And so there wasn't a whole lot of just Colin and Lauren time. And so, we don't have our own separate bedroom, but on the flip side, I get to go to bed every night and kiss her goodnight, and then every morning I get to wake up and she's right there and we get to start our day together.
Yeah.
And so that's been my favorite part of being married. The dishes also suck.
Yeah. But we haven't had any burnt meals yet.
Good. Yeah, I feel like we both are good cooks, honestly. Because Colin's a pretty
He's a
good
good
cook.
I would say for anyone that's single that hasn't met their person yet, I would say the biggest piece of relationship advice is to just wait for God's timing, because He's got a perfect plan for you.
Yeah.
He's got that person out there for you. They might not be ready for you yet, or you might have more to learn and grow before you're ready to meet that person, and you just don't realize it until you meet them. And so I would say, just be patient in the timing. I know that's easy for me to say because I feel like we met
you're married
young.
now, so
Well,
it's easy.
right, and we met young, but I definitely wasn't looking when I met you, and I definitely was not ready to be in a relationship. But just the fact that I wasn't pushing it and I wasn't trying to fabricate anything about myself to like you. Like in the beginning of our relationship, I really didn't care if it went anywhere or not because I wasn't looking for that. But once we started to get to know each other and spend time together and become friends, I couldn't imagine my life without you. So I don't know, I think just being authentic and being yourself and not trying to push it, just waiting and letting God's timing work it out.
Mm-hmm. And then Colin, for you, what is your biggest piece of advice for someone who's chasing a dream or like in a season of waiting?
I would say that when I've been chasing my dream or when I've felt like I'm in a waiting period, that is when I've listened to God the closest. Mm-hmm. Because there's a lot of times when you think you're chasing the right dream or you think that God is opening doors and there's a lot of obstacles. Mm-hmm. And every obstacle just seems harder than the last one. It feels like a taller mountain you have to climb. And that's, in my experience, I know I'm only 24 years old and I don't have a whole lot of life, but when I've been chasing a dream that God has opened doors for me, the obstacles don't seem so high.
Yeah.
They're definitely there, and don't get me wrong by saying that. I mean, like I touched on in the beginning, like when I tried out for UVL's football team the first time, I got cut. I didn't make the team. I got told, maybe come back or maybe, stick to being a baseball manager. But in that moment, those obstacles didn't seem that big. I felt so filled with God that this was what I was supposed to do, mm-hmm. that He kind of makes it so those obstacles are there so that you have to give Him credit, but you don't feel overwhelmed by those obstacles. You don't feel discouraged by them. I would say, though, that a lot of times people are chasing a dream that doesn't line up with what God's calling them to do, and that's when those obstacles seem impossible and they wear you out and you feel that everything is an uphill battle and nothing is capable of you being able to do it. And a lot of times it's because you're doing it on your own and you're not capable of achieving great things without God.
Yeah.
When I was, wanting to be a baseball player, everything felt like it was an uphill battle. Everything felt like it was harder than it should have been. Right. And I love baseball, don't get me wrong, but when God's trying to lead you in a different direction, those dreams will seem a lot more achievable.
Right. Yeah.
So I would just say be in tune to what God's telling you to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just that, like, a lot of times doors that are closing are just an opportunity for, like, another door to open, like the one that you're actually supposed to walk through. So it's like a lot of rejection is very discouraging to us, but ultimately it's for our best interest and for a better yes somewhere down the line. And it's really hard to say in a season of waiting, but in the end, it's just so much more worth it.
Give me your heart, give me your soul, sing it with all your might. Come to the fountain and you can be satisfied.
Do you want to say bye-bye? Please say bye-bye.
Big thanks to Colin, Lauren, and Sheldon for opening up their home and just for all the wisdom and encouragement.
You're very welcome. Anytime you need advice, my Twitter handle is Colin Holba. My Instagram handle is Colin Holba.
Wow.